Who have you struggled with most in your life? Your parents or children, a partner, colleagues? Won Buddhism reminds us the source of struggle is not outside of you. We usually think our biggest struggles are with our other people, a partner, a coworker, a family member, or even society. But really, every struggle out there starts much closer to home in our very mind. Before anything happens on the outside, there's already something happening inside, a judgment, a bit of resistance, an old story we are playing. The situation might light the spark, but our own thoughts and feelings keep the fire going. Once we see that, we know where the real battle is, not out there somewhere, but here. If the mind is where the real battle happens, then we need a way to see where we are in that journey. In Won Buddhism, that map is called the stages of Dharma rank, a guide to the direction and depth of our inner cultivation. So this map has 6 stages. The first stage is the beginner's stage for those newly introduced to the Buddha's teachings. The second stage is called special faith for those who form a sincere intention to practice. And then comes a shift, the third stage, when an inner struggle begins, called the battle between Dharma and Mara. And here, Mara refers to any and all hindrances that arise on our path. As the Dharma power grows and Mara begins to lose its grip, we enter the fourth stage where Dharma consistently prevails and Mara no longer rises. This is the stage, Dharma strong, Mara defeated. And actually there are 2 more stages, which I'll introduce to you next time. The stage of Dharma strong and Mara defeated marks the beginning of sagehood, a stage where you naturally become a guide for others. You become a teacher. And you can become a teacher because at this stage, you've gained liberation from the cycle of birth and death. You have a deep understanding of the scriptures and insight into the nature of all things, great and small, being and non-being. And you've learned to engage your 6 senses in daily life in a way that Dharma consistently overcomes Mara. And there's much we could explore in each of these 3 points, but today I want to focus on the third one, 6 senses, guided by Dharma, in particular on the very root of Mara. So I consider the movie, The Matrix, a great Buddhist film. If you agree with me, you are in my generation, I would assume. At the beginning, the main character, Neo, senses that something isn't quite right. He feels a vague discomfort, like reality doesn't fully add up. Then he is offered a choice. Stay in the familiar but diluted world, or wake up to the truth, a reality in which humans are unknowingly being used as batteries. Neo chooses to wake up. And from that moment on, there is no going back to previous life. In the same way, once there's no way back, but there's way back for this thing. In the same way, once we encounter the teachings of Dharma and Mara and begin to engage in that inner battle, we can go back to the way things were because we can unsee what we've seen And we can't unknow that we've been living in delusion. This inner conflict is in fact happening every moment. We may be unaware, but happening every time we see, hear, feel, or think, our minds are being tested. To simply put, this inner conflict is about learning to win over ourselves. Master Sotaesan said, "Some may be strong enough to defeat others, but those who conquer themselves are even stronger. The one who conquers self will have the strength to guide all beings." So conquering ourselves should be a piece of cake, right? But if it's not, then why is it so hard? To really answer that, we have to take a close look at what we're actually up against, what's happening inside when we struggle. When we talk about winning over ourselves, we are really talking about overcoming Mara, the inner barriers that keep us from seeing clearly. So Mara, hindrances, doesn't look the same for everyone, right? For some, it shows up as anger. For others, it may be laziness, self-blame, or constant distraction. But underneath it all, Mara is rooted in greed, anger, and delusion. And then the deepest of this is delusion, what we call 치심 in Korean, the mind that doesn't see clearly. So 치심 is the mind that fails to distinguish right from wrong. And if you see this word in Chinese character, it has two parts, right? The upper part is 병, sickness, and what's inside is 의, doubt. Sometimes it is written as 지, to know. So 치심 is a sickness of the mind clouded by not knowing and by seeing what is false as true. So 치심, when we have 치심, we don't distinguish right from wrong. Even when we do know, if we act with shamelessness or disregard, that too is 치심. In the early stages of practice, many people simply don't recognize what's right or wrong. But as practice deepens, the challenges become more subtle. We begin to face the hidden, shameless mind. The thing is, these deluded things or thoughts don't always shout, they whisper. So let's take a look at how 치심, deluded mind, can show up in daily life, how it shapes our behavior and attitude. When the mind is deluded, it may lead to rigid self-righteousness, blaming others, habitual reactivity, emotional confusion, or unnecessary shame. Practice deepens when we begin listening closely to our most private, hidden thoughts. We all carry thoughts we hesitate to admit, but it's in facing those thoughts that real growth begins. So I had a moment when I realized just how much 치심, deluded mind, was nesting inside me. At first, it showed up as resentment. So reflecting on my 19 years of walking this path as a 교무님, I began to recognize something quietly lodged within me. I, too, carried a habit of resentment. And that realization actually surprised me. So whenever I read Master Sotaesan's words, people in the world have a disease of resentment, I thought that must be about others. I never imagined it was about me. And over time, through quiet reflection, I began to see that I had the same illness, hidden, subtle, almost invisible. Then one day after seated meditation, my mind grew clear and memories from the past rose to the surface. I saw how, in difficult times, my first thought often blamed circumstances or others, something I had never admitted to myself. So before the One Dharma Center, I served in 3 different temples. At my first post, I was an inexperienced practitioner, stubborn, full of my own ideas. Because of that, my teacher occasionally scolded me. Each time, I felt a deep sense of shame. And without realizing it, I projected those painful feelings onto her. She was known as a strict teacher anyway, so it was easy for me to cast her in the role of scary one. At my second post, I faced even more difficulty, especially in my relationship with the person I was living with. Whenever challenges came up, I blamed her for being difficult. Her peculiarities were well known to those around me, so it was also easy to justify my view. What I didn't consider was that I too had something to look into. And the third, I thought I had grown in experience, but confidence slowly turned into pride. I thought I was doing well. Everything seemed fine on the outside. Now, after 5 years in this community, living in the same building with 14 sets of eyes, sharing meals together, daily routines, and unspoken moments, I found the courage to truly look inward with honesty. Because in this kind of life, there is nowhere to hide, not from others and not from myself. And over time, I came to see the root of those hardships wasn't always the people or circumstances around me. The core of it was, in fact, the chi심, the deluded mind within me. And with that realization, my authentic practice finally began. So how do we know whether we have chisim? The tricky part is, chisim often hides in plain sight. It's not always loud or dramatic. It shows up as a quiet stubbornness, like I'm right, and they just don't get it. Subtle blame. If only they change, things would be fine. Silent pride. Been there, done that. That feeling of being slightly above or slightly beneath someone. Or even that inner voice that says, I am being sincere. So let's reflect on sincerity here. We believe we are being kind and sincere. But many times we have not fully examined that feeling. We may smile, say the right words, offer help, but under the surface, there might be a layer of impatience or a quiet avoidance that we haven't fully faced. So let me share a recent experience of my own. A gluten-free guest. So this is also a retreat center, so we facilitate retreat, or sometimes we invite group of people to use our facilities. A gluten-free guest at a retreat requested a new bowl of almond butter not be touched by a spoon that had touched a regular bread. I never asked you this question before, but I compiled and set aside a fresh jar. But inside, a voice whispered, "Isn't that a bit much?" I just brushed it off, didn't dwell on it, and I moved on with the task. Outwardly, everything looked fine. I had done what was asked. But inwardly, something was unsettled. That small voice lingered. The next morning, while preparing breakfast, I saw the gluten-free bread placed right next to the regular bread, edges slightly touching. Another thought quietly arose. It's close enough. I was just about to walk away again, but something stopped me. I paused. I saw the pattern repeating. And in that stillness, I recognized it. That 치심, deluded mind, the part of me that wanted to appear considerate, right? But didn't actually want to be fully considerate. The part that wanted to seem mindful without letting go of my own convenience. So what I did, I took a breath, brought a fresh set of bread, and placed it properly. Dharma 1. To truly see 치심, we must pause longer and see what's most subtle. Then we start noticing what thoughts come up when we are challenged. What stories we tell ourselves when we are uncomfortable. What we avoid admitting even to ourselves. So it's not about being harsh. It's about being honest, gentle, and deeply curious. Master Chongsan said, the root of 치심 is the desire for honor and fame, and it is in truth a craving for recognition. So why do we need that recognition? Have you thought about that? Because we all craving for recognition. So I know the conditioned human mind longed to be seen, heard, and understood by others. So it feels like proof that we matter, right? But pause and consider, from whom are we truly seeking it? That constant turning outward, that subtle drifting away from our true nature, that is what we call delusion. 치심, the deluded mind, feeds on ignorance. And ignorance has power when it stays hidden. So Master Chongsan said, 치심 is overcome through cultivating a bright and upright mind. So my journey continues with this courage to look deeply into my secret, deceiving thoughts. And here's what I've learned. Even if Dharma seems to lose the moment, Mara cannot stay hidden. Mara lives quietly in the undercurrent, in greed, in anger, and most often in delusion, arising through my six senses, shaping my habits without me even knowing. And yes, there are moments when Dharma feels like it has lost. When we snap in resentment and impatience. Once we see that movement clearly without resistance, we can begin to discern the subtle workings of the deluded mind. Our teachers described the mind through different types of energy. One of them is heavy, sinking, scattered energy, which from the one with strong 치심. I found a helpful insight for my own practice here. So sometimes I notice that my energy feels scattered, unfocused, and sinking. So I make the effort for boosting my 단전, abiding meditation practice, where I can gather my mind, restore focus, and brighten my energy. In everyday life, choosing clarity over delusion is never easy, but it begins the moment we commit to practice. So my hope is that you, too, will step onto your own inner battlefield between Dharma and Mara, learning to overcome your hindrances and to grow through them. Thank you.